Good evening, everyone. I'm Dale Blomé, and my co-host, Sonny Holmes, are opening the program up. It's Tuesday, June 7th, 2016, and tonight's show host is Peter Hartgens, and the topic of the first Tuesday of every month, once again, is spirituality. And Sonny, if you're there, you could hit the law of one, and we can get this show rolling.
Okay, thank you, Dale. And by the way, this is reference number 440 for anyone that wants to listen before it's up on YouTube or who can't listen to YouTube. So anyway, okay, now on this day of many primary elections across the country, we certainly aren't going to focus on politics, but it's in the air right now. So we call in the highest good of all concerned for what is going on right now in our nation and the people and the candidates and the overall transformations that we're going through, and for the greater healing of all of us and our planet. So that being said, we are all one. When one is harmed, all are harmed. When one is helped, all are helped. Therefore, in the name of who I am, and I am one with all there is, I ask that only that which is the highest good of all concerned happen here and now and throughout all time and space. I give thanks that this be done, and so it is. Well, thank you all for being here, and thank you, Peter, for being here. And I'm just going to say a few things before we start. I'm just going to say, some general news items that are going on. Mother Earth is showing her restlessness. There have been some earthquakes, 5.4 in New Zealand, 5.5 in Fiji, 6.2 in Mexico, also a 5.5 in Mexico, and in Florida there have been floods. These are part of the Earth changes, and the floods are due to Tropical Storm Colin, and the gamma ray burst there's been a gamma ray burst from the Cetus constellation, and so it appears that the solar storms are starting to cool down a little that we experienced over the weekend, but we're under the influence of pretty strong astrological configuration of T-square, which is be going on for a while, especially, it's a grand cross right now. The T-square will be going on for a while. So many of us are experiencing symptoms due to these things. So we just have to be good to ourselves and just treat ourselves well and treat each other well and keep our prayers in order for the highest good of all concerned. So thank you, and now Peter Hartgens of the Universal Faces of Cosmos will be here to lead us in a wonderful spiritual hour.
We do certainly hope so. Thank you very much, Sonny. That was a great introduction.
You're welcome.
Though not to talk about politics as politics, but it's, we do separate things, but actually polis or polis just simply means the people. So in a way, what we're really talking about is the part of politics or the people of electing people to tell us what to do or not to do if they even know what to do. So enough of politics. What I wanted to bring up tonight is what I call the 3 R's, and the 3 R's are restoration, resurrection, and redemption. And I'm sure we're all aware of those conditions. So again, since my major focus is coming from the OWASP and other spiritual works, but the OWASP and the Universal Faiths of Cosman Church and so forth and so on. One of the things dealing with is that we see them coming more and more into being, and to use the OWASP reference of resurrection, it is not just the concept of the resurrection in the sense of how OWASP puts it: when we pass on, we're resurrected into the first and second resurrection and third resurrection in the spirit world, but that when individuals come together in a group to do good works, they've already started to engage in their resurrection. So groups and who work together as one body towards very good goals are already increasing their power of resurrection and restoring, from this point of view, restoring the old communities written about in OWASP and in other books of that existed in the ancient times, of those people who came together in small groups of people, up to 2,000, maybe 3,000 people, to do a good work, come together and live a lifestyle that was healthy and in keeping with nature and the Creator. And so I would like to just kind of ask if anybody has any comments on this, any perspectives on what they're hearing at this point.
Peter, and putting and working together with Sonny and configuring this program, and you mentioned the restoration, redemption, and resurrection. Was that?
Yeah.
Did I got that correct?
Yes.
Well, and for people to understand, particularly the listening audience, just what we're trying to do here, and the components in the universe of the earth, the sky, and the spirit. And the significance of that triangle is that when you connect all those elements together, what you do is when you take oxygen and you take fuel and you add fire, you have combustion. And so the essence of this program is to take all the components in the universe and create that critical mass where we start generating heat and energy, and become a force to help with this, with the resurrection and reconciliation and redemption, and move us into another dimension. And this process is a spiritual component that is going to give us the growth that we need to reach that next level, because we're lacking in wisdom and understanding, and so that's what we have to work. We have to discover that unknown spiritual component that will make the other aspects of the physical world change the reality. And so this is our quest, and and I'm real grateful that Peter. And this is the purpose of the program, and we're structuring each segment. We're dividing it actually into 4 one-hour components every Tuesday. And we start with the spiritual component, which is, of course, the unseen and the potent part, and the most important. And that's why and we're blessed to have Peter, who is here to guide us along on this path. So that's what the message I wanted to convey. And it's right in line with the Trinity, you know.
Mm. The magic number of 3. Three just seems to be a very important number in so many ways.
Right, and it can be applied to different concepts: wisdom, love, and power, intelligence, understanding, and justice. I mean, the triangle is present as to the 3 major components, or we can say body, mind, and soul, or we can say spirit, soul, and body. All these things play into each other. You, Sonny, talking about the T-square and talking about astrology, according to the OSB teachings, that the regular T, without, not the full cross T, but the T where it's a capital T, is also the symbol of the Ethereans, particularly if it's a silver T. But it's interesting that you mentioned the T-square.
Oh, yeah, I wasn't quite aware of that. At least I didn't remember that. But
right.
Yeah,
that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it is. It is a rather challenging aspect in astrology because it's two squares in an opposition.
Right.
Nevertheless, that's what we're dealing with, and it pushes us forward, really, if we use the energies properly, to the best of our abilities anyway.
Yeah, it's interesting you brought that up because, a lot of people think of the square as a negative thing, but actually it's kind of like a jump start to the car when it's not going to the battery, It gets us moving because we're put in situations that we have to respond to, like it or not.
Right. Especially when Saturn's involved here. We've got Saturn in Sagittarius, and
right.
And we've got Neptune in Pisces, squaring in Jupiter and Virgo, and then across from that we have Venus in Gemini, and we just had a new moon, and I was under the impression it was in Gemini too, but the astrologer that was speaking last night on the regular Diamond Show told us that it was still in Taurus at the time, and then it just went into Gemini right after that. Anyway, that's the Grand Cross we're dealing with, and then there was Mercury and Venus involved in Gemini as well. Pretty sure I know it was Venus. So anyway, that's what we were dealing with, and still are.
I think again when we're talking here with when we started talking when I was talking about the resurrection, the restoration, and the redeeming. There's really 2 components, and basically the term resurrection is that which lifts us up, or what we do to lift us up, to resurrect, where restoration is sort of like you get a house and you kind of put it together. It's in bad shape and you fix it up. Then once it's fixed up, in the sense of it's been restored, to do activities in that house or with that house that lift up people to do things. So we buy an old building, we restore it, we start putting the pieces together. And the more abstract part of that is by doing that, we enter into the state of redemption. And we can use this whether in mundane terms or more spiritual terms, but it is the act of basically of fixing things, restoring them, putting them back in order. The earth has been out of order. Our species has been out of order. and this age, whether you might call it the Cosmic Age or the New Age, or even, may I be so bold to say, the Messianic Age, the age when things come together, and we start looking at what, as a people, as a combined planetary mind, starting to look at what we're really doing and how we relate to this world, and our solar system, et cetera, and the galaxy and the universe in general. I think that's very important, since I do understand that we're talking here that the focus of these shows, as I understand it from talking to Dale, is about the communal effort, the intentional communities.
Well, the Earth, Sky, and Spirit component is the intentional community design and architecture, not only of the physical plant, but the internal spiritual mechanism that drives these communities and keeps them together.
Right.
Yeah, that's very good that you mentioned the restoration and all of that, because this all seems to fit together with creating community. And then our guest next week will be talking about architecture. My friend Belden from the One World Family, and he's really good at that, and he's really good at restoring old buildings and creating newer ones too. So he fits in with all of that. So I can see how all of this is really fitting together, all the things that we're talking about here.
And what's really remarkable, Sonny, with Belden's the second Tuesday show devoted to architecture is, my favorite as I evolved individually, and got to the point where I just said, well, this has to be done in a nonviolent fashion. This change is taking place, and Buckminster Fuller's quote, is really resonates with me, and that's just really my favorite, the model by which I live, and it's I'll just repeat it here for the sake of understanding. You can't change anything by fighting the existing reality. If you want to change something, build a better model that makes the old model obsolete. And the fact that Belden was a student of Buckminster Fuller and sustainable design is really profound. That's another blessing.
Oh, very much so. Yes, it's a major piece of our puzzle here.
Yeah.
Or total picture.
Well, as one of the ancient names of the Creator is the architect of the universe. Mm. That is, the architecture is very profoundly connected to the geometric reality of our universe. I do want to.
And an Oahspe prophecy, Peter, that really hits me between the eyes too, is we run around and we try to think we're putting things together and we're doing this and that and the other, and there's a clear message that was in the Oahspe that I remember. I will send them to you. In other words, when we're in the right place in the state of things, everything kind of just comes together. And that's the evidence that the Creator is supporting it, Right.
And I think, what I have often said on other conversations, that using the old Oahspe term for the administrator of the planet as God of heaven and earth, says very clearly in Oahspe, do you think I'm just going to use the faithist to bring the kingdom on earth, or basically the communities of light? So it's already happening from different ways, different belief systems. This communal mentality is growing and growing and taking hold in many different ways. And as the old system shows so many flaws, more and more people of of education and good reputation, and not just rebels. I mean, they even have courses now in intentional communities in colleges.
And here's a real highlight that's going to brighten everybody's day. Because I'm always looking at physical evidence in the real world to substantiate what we believe and think. And there was, the world's top-rated male tennis player who just won the French Open is a vegan, and he recently opened up a vegan restaurant in Monte Carlo.
Oh.
And now to top that, Serena Williams, the top-rated women's player, is vegan, and her sister is a vegan. So what we want to dispel this notion that one, Darwin, we aren't condemned to imitate animal behavior ad infinitum. That's a big one. That we stop killing animals and killing human beings and adopted the philosophy of nonviolence, and that our physical performance is enhanced by a vegan diet. Not that we think a lot of weak people who are suffering from bone disintegration. So all this truth is coming to bear at the same time. Who we are, what we eat, how we think, how we live. All of this is going through a transition period, and it's really exciting,
Right, and we're taking leaps and bounds in knowledge. Just a minute, I've heard some dings. So anyone come on board who wants to announce their presence?
Hello.
This is Patty from Spokane, Washington.
Hi,
Patty.
I'm good.
Welcome.
How are you?
Glad to have you here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm Misty's friend.
Yes, I remember you from Misty's show last week. Yeah, we had a nice conversation on that show.
Oh, Peter. So we've got you the first Tuesday as host, Belton the second Tuesday as the host, and Misty has agreed to come on board with Health and Wellness, which is the last Tuesday of the month, and hosting that show. So it's coming together. We're still in search of our musical component for the third Tuesday, and we're divining the individual to come forward, and he or she hasn't appeared yet. So,
as I said, though, when I start working again, we're going to have to renegotiate what night I can come on board. But for now,
I put this out to the executive producer of the Diamond Show, the Diamond Network, Elizabeth, and she's working on it, Peter, and we tentatively have agreed to move you to Thursday, providing that the other people that are in that slot are willing to come to Tuesday. So again, this is something I'm doing. Nothing's fixed in the universe in this regard, so we're just walking along. I'm glad if my presentations do some help and help us all along and make good conversation. And I do want to mention here that, I have come to understand, and of course everything has different angles to its dimension, but the difference between, as I understand and I've been taught, the difference between spiritual and psychic is, and I'm going to read something here from the Owaspy, which may be helpful. The law is unalterable in heaven and on earth, that whatsoever you cultivate will grow. The Spirit groweth by cultivation, which is the practice of wisdom, truth, virtue, benevolence, and affiliation with others. Psychic ability is the ability to see onto different planes and perceive different realities. Again, the more we have knowledge, the more we can
understand and perceive what we may see on other planes, or how we even perceive things on this plane. So again, well, I'm pointing here that a lot of times people who may not think themselves spiritual, if their goal is being truthful, cleansing themselves, developing wisdom, virtue, and benevolence, they're already opening themselves up to that which can raise us up in any dimension. The Owasabi term for one of the terms for the Creator is all knowledge, and knowledge itself is the Creator. And according to Owasabi, the term Christ, going back to the Hamic language, means knowledge or all knowledge or knowledge of the all. So we have seen since I'm rounding it off to 1850s, the amazing growth in knowledge. I remember a quote in the regular Constantine Bible, or what most people call the New Testament, where it says that Christ will come in secret at first. So the beginning of the 1850s, we had also the spiritualist movement. We also had concrete science that wanted to find knowledge, prove things that could be proved physically. And I look at that as the knowledge coming in secret, in the sense that the greater knowledge, the knowledge of how it all fits together, is now coming more and more into being. So that real Christ knowledge, in the sense of the knowledge of the all, or the knowledge of the universe, the living Creator, is making itself more and more known. And people are searching for it. And as it said in that little quote, one of the important parts of spiritual growth is affiliation with others, not isolated labor, if possible. The more people can come together and work together in a communal sense, whether literally in one place working together, or working as we are now, trying to get better understanding, reaching out to each other, discussing ideas, and hopefully feeling more and more connected with each other. This is all, for me, part of it. We're not just, and open for discussion. I'm putting forth what my understanding doesn't mean is all, it's the correct thing. It's an angle of vision in an infinite universe with infinite aspects of understanding.
What's beautiful is that we each have our own unique perspective on these things, and it's nice that when we share, we can see how it all weaves together, like colors of a rainbow or the facets of a diamond. And when you talked about knowledge, what came to mind, and that's the mind, is that the knowledge is more than from the brain. It's from the soul. It's something that we know in our souls and in our hearts, and we use our minds to perhaps to communicate this. So it's multifaceted in terms. This is my take on all of this from my years of exploring truth, and that we really are becoming more whole, and that's what we need to aim for, is becoming more whole as integrated beings, and then hearts, minds, and souls will be reflecting the knowledge that we really have within us of the Creator, the creation, the entire universe, and how everything's evolving at this time and in the community. And I see this right now as these shows, the Diamond shows, plus the Owasabi shows that we did, and I guess there will be a continuation of that. This is all part of our growing community, and plus beyond that, all the people that we are connected with and we communicate with and such. So anyway, that's my perspective on reflection on what we've been, what years.
Sonny, as I'm listening to this, basically the component that we're at is we're the fire starters, and so we're bringing these elements together, the earth, the sky, and the spirit, and we're bringing these elements together collectively, and we look back in our past and the what's taken place. And we have to incorporate that as a resource that is a part of this transition, and so it's controlling, it's controlling and regulating. Cooking is time and temperature, and this deconstruction of the old world and the construction of the new one is a process that has to be modulated and regulated and shaped so the temperature doesn't run away. If things get crazy and people run away with their emotions and they don't do enough reasoning and thinking, then this is where you have these really erratic, horrific things happen. The one thing that comes to mind is when things get out of hand and you take people that have been traumatized, like the Germans after the First World War, very much like what happened in 2008. You've got a population that's really been traumatized, and what happens in this when people are traumatized, they lose the ability to think, and they can become victims of their emotions. And all it takes is a Hitler or a Trump, to light the match, but there's not enough regulation over that emotion, and then it has horrific consequences. So in this change that's taking place, the meditate, and I use the WASP as a reference again because over and over again, it's mentioned this is a time for meditation. To really meditate and think before we formulate an action and to come out with positive results. So that's a really important thing. As we're working together, we have to visualize and realize what that common purpose is. So we things don't go haywire.
You need to have the balance. That's what I've seen through this. Is we shouldn't be suppressing our emotions. That's very dangerous, and it creates all kinds of problems. But like water, it flows, but we don't act out the most extreme. We shouldn't be acting out on the extreme emotions. We should let it flow and then integrate it all with our perceptions of our mind and our soul, and just become balanced. Sometimes we get a little off for a while because things are crazy, but we can just pull itself back to center and meditate and just get that in order, get back to the truth of who we are and the Creator within us that is guiding us and our guides and everything else. We're in quite a process right now of transformation. Most of us are going through tremendous transformations.
And we do have some real examples in the world where reason has prevailed, and the most recent was the situation in South Africa. And you had the right people, the right combination of people, and the right ideas come together in that perfect triangle, which was a regulated fire, combustion, and the horrific things didn't happen because there was enough wisdom there to take the circumstances and turn them into something positive. And it was a really major nonviolent change that had all the elements, the anger and the hatred, the bitterness and the resentment, all the things that could have provoked a horrific event were contained with reason. They didn't call out the tanks and the guns, and they didn't shoot people. They just said, we have to forgive our enemies, and we have to, have those things. We have to have reconciliation and redemption and restoration, which is what Peter initiated with it. That is a real living example of people resorting to reason and wisdom as opposed to anger and violence.
I think that's a really good point, Dale, and it does encompass more than the abstract of forgiving, because what they put in place, as you're alluding to, is that they put in a whole series of being able to discuss with those who had been hurt, who did the hurting on either side, to confront each other, not pretend that it didn't happen, but to actually talk out the incidences. And it was because they were able to really speak on it. And
I don't know those people that aren't familiar with what took place there, but the individuals that were part of the white ruling class that injured family members and friends had to confront the survivors and ask for their forgiveness. So it was a very real, tangible expression, and the family members who were injured had to go through the act of forgiving them for killing their mothers or kids or cousins, and so there was that reconciliation process was really and Bishop Tutu and Mandela insisted that had to be part of the process to put the bitterness and resentment to rest.
And Dale, went both ways. There were blacks who were apologizing to whites for horrendous deals. The thing was that it wasn't one way. It was just talking about we have to face what has been done. And I have mentioned this before in some phone conversations. I think it would be truly very helpful for people to Bishop Tutu's book he and his daughter wrote, and I am looking for the name of it. Here we go. I got it on Talking Book, but it's a regular book. The Book of Forgiving, The Fourfold Path, Healing Ourselves, by Desmond M. Tutu and his daughter Maampo A. Tutu. And he goes into the whole process of it. And I think it's been discussed before that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, and it doesn't mean just opening your arms and hugging the person, because people have to show that they changed. And it is really an excellent book in discussing how to overcome that. And there's personal stories, including Bishop Tutu himself, of overcoming his own beast and his own bitterness and hurt. So I do recommend it for all of us who are trying to build a better world and also learn how to live with each other in a communal setting, because, we as human beings come from, different family cultures that bring us up in certain ways, different ethnic cultures. We tend often to be oversensitive and take things that may not be an affront as an affront. So we have to learn how to hear, how to speak, how to be considerate of others. And these are all skills that we're learning little by little, and definitely skills that must be in place in an intentional community, so that there is a way of exercising feelings before they explode and before misconceptions happen.
And here's another highlight. Some of you are probably already aware of, but this was really a tremendous beginning, and with the Pope inviting the head of the Sunni Muslim faction of the Muslim religion and world into the Vatican to have a discussion, which is a first. This has never happened. So it's and I don't want to overblow the significance of it, but at least there's a beginning conversation. And this is what has to take place in the Middle East, just like in South Africa. There's a history of abuses, and it's heavily in the ether, coupled with all of the spiritual significance of the Holocaust and all the damage and injury that's been done, and so it's loaded for volatility and tragedy, but it has that element that in the Chinese word that there's danger, but there's also opportunity. So that's where we have to find the opportunity to grow. And Peter, it's in what just exactly what you began the show with, the very thing that took place in South Africa. It takes forgiveness and reconciliation. It takes redemption and then restoration. And so it's a pathway. There's an opening. There is an opportunity and I hope that we're able to take advantage of it and put all this division and to rest, so we can move on as a planet and a people.
And I think as a key, one of the keys, there's more than one key in this, is not to take anything personal, even if it is personal. We have to rise above self. It's, for me, it's developing from the I, me, mine to the we, us, all, which is easy to say and not that easy to do. I know, coming from the generation I came from of rebellion and wanting to change the world, I have noticed in my generation, in myself as well, it's easier to criticize what's wrong than to really fix and invent and make something new work. So we were a good generation of pointing to what the errors of our society was, but to actually build a new society is a real challenge. And I think truly that the people who are going to do it are the people who are coming up now and their children. But we have a chance to really do some of the groundwork and keep the energy going and pass it on.
Yes, that was the first step in the breakthrough of just recognizing all of these things, and we've all grown and matured, and then the younger generations that followed us, hopefully, and it seems like many of them are carrying on.
I had a very inspiring experience this Sunday. I think it was Sunday. When were you up here, Dan? Was it Sunday or Saturday?
That was Saturday morning.
Saturday. There's one of the groups I interact is a vegan support group run by a lady named Patricia. I can't think of it. It's Todd. And they were holding a vegan kind of gathering luncheon in a Memorial Park here in Pasadena, which was not far from my house. And I went there, and the majority of people who were there like young people, really. I mean, young. By my standards, young. Like 20s, 30s. And it's really young now for me. So, but really, with this and a hunger, what got, and hopefully these two young men I talked to will follow up. They have a hunger of wanting to find out about intentional communities. And listening to them talk, definitely not religious in the idea of organized religion, but spiritual in their nature. And it was really heartening to hear them talking. And, it wasn't just the wonderful idea of, we don't kill animals, we don't hurt animals, but just the real understanding of the need for a new way of interacting in society through small communities. And they really seem to understand and seem to have a real thirst to find out more about the movement. So I told them to call me Friday or Saturday, and I would be talking, give them the number to this, and also putting them in touch with Daniel, and hopefully, they can get the publications on intentional communities and so forth that are in existence. And maybe they'll start something, and maybe who knows what may grow out of it. But it was just really nice to find people who weren't at the age of being ready to transfer the energy and work into the next dimension.
Sounds really good, Peter. It's inspiring to hear that.
Yeah, it made my day. I mean, also seeing Dale made my day, but
wow.
It was a really good get-together. We haven't really hung out for a long time now, so it was a joyous... I think, Dale, I should have probably got you to go before we did the other things to that thing, because you would have seen these guys, but I didn't know what to expect exactly either.
Well, with this, what it means, Peter, I go back to when we were kids in the '60s. We had the seed there in the idea of the commune, but we got lost in the sacrament and devolved into a drug culture.
Yeah, it was really like, and also, like love me, love my dirt. Let's smoke up.
Yeah.
And
well, we did a lot of tuning, turning on, but not much tuning in.
Yeah, exactly.
It all happens. Yeah, in my perception.
It's getting refined. It's getting down to the nuts and bolts of this thing, and it's on a more solid foundation that will endure.
Oh yeah, much.
It's time to ripen. Yeah.
Miss Patty, I'm going to be 65 on June 12th, and I'm telling you, the kids nowadays and the drugs they're doing and what's going on is far worse than what it was when I didn't touch anything except marijuana before I was 18. Well, and alcohol,
Yeah.
But now we've got little kids high. In the state of Washington, you can go into Walgreens, I think, and you can buy without a prescription Narcan, so that if you do overdose on heroin, you can bring yourself back from it. And we've had a lot of people dying all over with this heroin that's coming in. It's just, I'm so glad I was born and I'm old now and I didn't. I'm watching, my nephew's got a little girl that's 15 years old pregnant, and they're doing meth, and I'm terrified.
Well, I'm 73, and I unfortunately or unfortunately was part of the drug culture, and I have to say marijuana was one of the least of my problems. So it was there too.
I went a lot deeper into it than that too. So it's like everything else. The amount of violence on television in the 60s was more than it was in the 40s or the 30s, and the more amount of violence now is on. But there really does seem to be really a split. You're having more young people who really want to make a better world, and you have, on the other side, this real self-destruct mentality. But that's part of the self-destruct mentality that's in the world. You know, shoot before you ask questions. Don't the violence.
It's the games they play. It's in the games.
But not just the children, the adults. You know, it's like for profit, do this, do that. We as a species, on the negative side, are suicidal and homicidal. We're killing our planet. We kill each other. But there is hope because there are young people, and there are more people who want to make peace in different cultures than had been in the First World War, the Second World War, or Korea. But the drug culture is very bad. But it's also another way that the powers that be to keep people anesthetized, have them eat bad food, don't exercise, take drugs. And you have basically a population you can manipulate.
Yeah. And what are you guys doing? You know, today I was watching all these inventions coming out of China, and I mean, I'm all over the world watching what's going on and how we're going to be protected. We're not going to be left in the cold here.
Right.
Nancy, I wanted to address this concern you have about these things, because there's been an evolution that's taken place. You know, the reaction to the drug culture of the 60s was the war on drugs, and they've been fighting this war and spending trillions of dollars, and it really hasn't helped anything. So now what the process that they're going through is a decriminalization. I saw a program where there was a chief of police that is not arresting the addicts, but he's working to get them in a structure where they're cared for and nurtured, and the psychological problem that exists that is causing the problem is being addressed.
And I went to drug court where they did that in the state of Washington. What a fantastic program. But a lot of the people weren't ready. But now we'll have the funding to do that for these people. And for us, you know, it's going to be wonderful.
Yeah, and I was going to mention, you know, I have been a student of the Chinese culture for a long time.
Good.
And if you back in the 60s, when we intervened in Asia and Vietnam, and the history going back to the Ming Dynasty and all the 10,000 years of history that China has, and then Mao Tse-tung coming forth, and they queried him on, well, what is China going to do? Do you have any plans of invading anybody? And he smiled and he said, China doesn't invade. China occupies. And every army that's gone into that Asian peninsula and into China has become Chinese. They disappear into the race. China, every day, just think of this, Nancy, every day they have to get 4 billion bowls of rice together. Not just today, not just tomorrow. So what China is doing, they are so busy just trying to keep the train on the track that we and my partner, we had just dinner, and he married a Chinese woman, and we had a great dinner. And I think the problem is the fear. If you really look at it, all of these things have the element of danger and opportunity. And what you have to focus on is don't get the fear there, but look at the opportunity that we have to work together and grow together and make the world a better place. And China is the leader in solar technology. They have to use wind and solar because they're dropping in the streets like flies because of their fossil fuel consumption. So they're making more progress than we speak, and these are the mathematical certainty, the axiomatic mathematical certainty is this: 50% of the planet is used to cultivate food for animals. Every year, 5 million acres of rainforest is mowed down to produce animal food. It's a mathematical certainty that it takes 2,500 gallons to produce 1 pound of beef. It only takes 200 gallons of water to produce 1 pound of animal protein in the form of soybeans or other protein plants. So we have to become vegan because the population, as it grows, cannot be supported on an animal food diet. And you don't have to think of any spiritual component about it. This is an axiomatic mathematical fact. We have to choose to be vegan because that's the only way we're going to survive. That the rainforest is responsible for 20% of our oxygen. So this path we're on is loaded with landmines, and we've got to. It's the necessity is the mother of invention, and in the OWASP, I always listen to the Creator commanded the change from a herbivorous man of peace, from a carnivorous man of peace to a carnivorous man of war to a herbivorous man of peace. And I said, you poo-poo it all. What does the Creator know? I'm going to have my spaghetti and meatballs. Well, people change out of necessity. So all of the opinion and the fear about the unknown, it will be dispelled when you're faced with the reality of what you have to do. And I just wanted you to be more confident and have more faith and courage, and don't be worried with all the negative things that are going on, because there's something at work here that's more powerful than everything.
And I have a very dear friend that's very, very into OWASP, and she lives in Taos, New Mexico, and she has a 26-year-old autistic son. And together she and I and her son play all the time, and I just want to see him healed. All of this is going to be over soon.
Yeah, there's no getting away from the growing pains. There are going to be some ugly things that happen, and that's part of the process,
There is a quote in OWASP that might fit this. And whom thou wouldst make strong, thou hast made to feel adversity's sting. Yet in the time of desperation, thy hand cometh to the rescue of those who seek thee. And the more we seek the light, and hard times, unfortunately, do make us strong and make us have to think and act. One of the things that OWASP points out all the time is much of those things that happen that we cry and say, how can the Creator do this? How can He do that? Seen from looking down from above as something that causes people in the long run to come together. And I think, for me, part of understanding this is that we all know when we were 5 or 6 years old and we were told to go to our room and we couldn't do this and that, our reaction that the most horrible, terrible thing has happened to us. And we perform and cry and, stamp our feet and see how mean our parents are. So when we get up into these other dimensions of existence and look back on the earth life, much of what we would think now as horrendous is part of the process that brought us to the birth in spirit. Now that does not mean, from our perspective here, that we do not fight injustice. It's not the old some of the Hindu system is, oh, well, it just is. And no, we're here, the more conscience we have of the Creator and what is goodness, to do our best by our highest light to bring to do those things to stop as much suffering as we can stop. At the same time, understanding that maturing and growing, and as it puts it in Owaski, there's no real evil. Evil is unripeness. There must be green fruit before you have ripe fruit.
Right.
Nevertheless, if I can avoid getting slapped by circumstances, I will try. But understanding what can be mined out of it, what's the gold or the silver light in that. But it is difficult. There is one quote though here I really have always loved in Owaski, because I like to dance and I like music, and it says, "I will sing and dance before thee. The germ of happiness is in my soul will I nurse as thy holiest gift. For of all the trees which thou hast planted in the souls of men and angels, this is the most glorious, for it is the perfection of thy voice, which singeth in all thy living creatures." And when I read that, I was like, okay, but we have sin. To really, and in one of the self-realization quotes, it talks about, we can choose to be happy even if unhappy things are happening to us, or basically the bright side. When we can laugh and be joyous, if we can laugh at our own misery, we start stepping above it. If we drown in it, we just get more and more depressed. Now, again, I'm not saying that we don't confront sorrow. Sometimes it's very necessary to help our growth. But the more we can be joyous and really connect with that joy of creation, the more we can get to a place where we can transcend the situation enough to get a better picture of what's going on and how to get out of it. And I know, having been very pessimistic a good deal in my life, that it's not the easiest thing to do, and I cultivated a lot of the existential nihilism, which now I'm putting a lot of effort to put away, but I did a good job of getting into it. So, it's a challenge. We are the masters of our own mind. We are the ones who can take charge of our thoughts, or we can just let our negative thoughts and fears bury us. But we have to make an active choice in our consciousness to rise above whatever's, hampering us for our own growth.
So far, so good for me, because in 2011 I was diagnosed with liver cancer.
Wow.
And 2.5 years they gave me. I'm almost 6 years now.
Good.
I had to go back to the doctor. I didn't like his news, but didn't do the treatment. I'm feeling great. I dance, I sing, I do everything I can do to be happy. Yeah. We all have our own soul song.
It really
helps. I have
helps.
my own soul song,
Well, as it comes every Tuesday, we're at the end of our program, but I want to give an ample opportunity for anyone to come in and offer a comment or a question, ask a question or anything. Is there anybody out there that has something to say?
Well, I guess I wanted to make a comment on the drug situation and what's been happening recently. And it is true that back in the 60s, yes, I was involved with the drug culture, but I never got completely sprung out or anything. I didn't do heavy drugs, except I did have a brief experience with speed, which wasn't the greatest, and I never really got that into it. But it was anyway. But when we look at what happened after that, as the youth got into all the when the music changed and the pop music changed and it became more negative and all that. So it seems like that people just got certain segment of the youth were very discouraged with the world, and of course you can't blame them, certain ways. But anyway, I do see these times as being the best of times, and then in terms of the ripening of consciousness, and there's still those that are moving into that negative side, because they're really discouraged, and they've just had so much pain in their lives, and they just want to check out,
And Sonny, the drug culture has become a big money maker. It's
Oh yeah.
When we were doing it, more people that I knew doing it, from whether they were poor or whether they were well off, were really looking, perhaps incorrectly, to expand consciousness and be about peace, and it wasn't about making money, and often it was, even when someone was sick, to share your drugs with them, even though that's not really good sense now, but that was doing a good work at that point, because you didn't want your friend to suffer. So
it was about consciousness for me. Anything that I did back then, I wanted to have
when it started really becoming a really profitable reality, that's part of the change. And I'm not trying to justify the use of the drugs in that culture, but it became much more of a cutthroat thing. People were being killed.
We were bringing it into our country ourselves.
I'm sorry, would you repeat that?
We were bringing the drugs into our country ourselves. Our government was.
Yeah, CIA. They say.
And now it's so bad that, but we know now, and all those doors are shutting down.
Well, I know when I was living in New York that it was common knowledge that when drug busts were made, different drug dealers thinked on each other, and some had deals with the local precinct, and so the drugs that were busted were put out on the street by the cops who were in league with some of the drug dealers.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a kind of go around. Plus, I was in my undergraduate. Undergraduate, I think, for my BSW in social work. That there was a child advocate who worked with the courts, and he was talking about in the 50s, particularly, that the police in New York consciously were having heroin go to the gangs, because when they were high, they weren't very active in beating each other up. And I know this sounds probably pretty far out, but they wanted to keep the population in order and didn't even understand fully the addictive qualities. And it was just, we pay for our mistakes.
And now, it's prescription drugs, painkillers that have become a big thing, and that's say no to. I say no to those drugs. Say no to pharmaceuticals.
But we also got to. You have a little pain that people wouldn't pay attention before. Now, I got a little pain. Let me drop something.
Yeah. Right.
I don't take the cancer drugs. They want to give me hydrocodone and vitamin B. I call it vitamin B. It's Valium. But I don't take those drugs. I smoke pot a little bit when I need it.
Right.
And I have my medical marijuana cards.
I was going to say it's being proven that the medicinal qualities of marijuana is very, and it's a different type of, it's grown differently. It has less THC, and it does help. And it's like anything else, overdo something and it's going to really take you on a bad trip. Use something to heal, and it is,
Peter, and everyone, there's the missing component. The missing component is really a strong family and community that doesn't exist.
Right.
So that we're looking at, when I was a kid growing up, everybody in my neighborhood knew who I was, knew my parents, knew what I was doing, where I was supposed to be. And if I walked down the street and got some weird idea that I was going to do something, there'd be somebody hollering out the window, Dale, you know where you're supposed to be right now, and go over and there and do what you're supposed to do. And it was in a community that we should have, that's nurturing and supporting and caring for one another. This is a result of what a WASPy says: I take care of mine and you take care of yours, and all will be well. And it's an abysmal failure, and that's part of the architecture that's missing that we need to have in order to thrive.
Yeah, I just want to make that clear. WASPy says that it's not how it should be. It says that's what we have done instead of looking out for each other. And one of the worst drugs that came out with that was crack, because crack was used more and more by women, and the family structure really fell apart at that time. And the neighborhoods just folded from that.
Yeah, we've had two overdoses in my neighborhood in the last month, of young women. And it's sad, very, very sad. And I hear the ambulances, and I just pray. All you can do is pray.
Right. Nancy, it's like, I could see and visualize when the Sunni leader in the Muslim world came to the Pope. That Pope Francis knows exactly what the solution is to the problem, and it's the problem we have in the communities with drugs, and that's the poverty and despair and hopelessness, that you have to get rid of. So once you establish abundance and you say you have a need for every human being, and they're a vital part of your community, and you bring them in and make them a part of what you say, we need you. This is you. You're vital to us. The life is sacred, and we all have an interest in everyone that's alive, and do our part to make that individual a completed whole member of our world. And that component is non-existent, and people are left to their own desires. And some, the wise are not helping the unwise, and the strong are not helping the weak. And when you have that paradigm, you have the consequences. And like any behavior, anything that's false, it eventually bears it out in the practice. So this is part of cobbling out these intentional communities and making sure that we have the components in that community that will ensure its endurance and continuation.
Well, I just had a small miracle while this phone call was going on. I have some cucumber plants, seeds that I planted under a grow light, and while we were on the phone call, one of my cucumbers just came up.
Oh, great.
That's spirit. That is spirit.
Yeah, you just watched it come up?
I didn't really watch it come up. I just walked over there and said,
you just saw it. Yeah, that's
and
great.
then I took the lid off, and sure enough, there's one in there. I think I put 25 seeds in it, so it's just starting.
Miracle of life.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is cantaloupes and blackberries and all kinds of stuff.
That's great. The garden is growing.
Yes.
Well, I've got
Early
a squash plant growing on my porch in a pot. And I've got some lettuces, and we'll just see how it goes. Yeah.
Does anyone else care to say something or ask a question or comment? I just want to make sure that everybody feels free to come in and speak. Well, Peter, it comes to a close. We haven't gotten the timing down to within that hour, but like I say, this is a work in progress too.
Thank you guys for being here for me.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you
for being here with us, Patty. We're all together in this.
Absolutely. Everybody's welcome. Peter, are you there?
Oops.
Hey, sorry, I have a phone. It's a special phone for the handicapped, but it's hooked up to my TV and so forth, U-verse. And sometimes the phone decides on its own when I have talked too much.
Okay. Oh, well,
I think it's time to close the show anyway.
Right.
Do you feel like closing with a prayer?
Who wants to do it? Anybody?
Well, I was wondering if you had an inspirational message to give before we close the program.
Okay. O thou infinite creator, O thou almighty, thou great spirit, thou life of all life, thou knowledge of all knowledge, thou ever present. Thank you for this time together with people of good intent, brothers and sisters. Thank you for your light. Thank you for your energy. Thank you for opening us up more and more and opening our understanding of the need of coming together and changing the world that we have created through the ignorance and selfishness and hoarding and just plain dumbness. And we are hopefully at the stage where we will become truly workers for Thee, Thou Almighty. Amen.
Amen. Well,
And I have one more thing.
Okay.
I love my heart and soul. I love all humanity. Bring love and peace together. The peace and harmony. The peace and harmony. That's from Master Shah's Soul Song.
All right.
All right. Great.
I'll sing it better next time. I'm kind of
All right.
embarrassed.
Well, thanks for sharing that. I appreciate it all.
Good evening, everybody. Come back next Tuesday and we'll discuss architecture with Belton Gelf and we'll talk about designing a new world. And where everyone's life is fulfilled. Okay?
All right.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Until next time. Until next Tuesday. Good night.
Good night.
You. Help you all.
Bye.
Bye.
Are you looking for healing or a change in your life to help you enjoy it more fully? You might benefit from a galactic energy reading and clearing from Chris Jacobs. Chris will work with you on a soul level to clear unseen negative influences, implants, programs, contracts, and energetic blocks. Chris Jacobs is a gifted energy healer. Contact him today at ChristopherStephenJacobs@gmail.com.